Hey everyone! Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're unpacking one of the most talked about economic moves of the last few weeks, Trump's tariffs. These tariffs shook not just the US economy but also had ripple effects across the entire globe. What were these tariffs really about? Who won? Who lost? And how did they impact everyday people, right here at home and across the world? This isn't just an economics lesson, it's a story about jobs, prices, farmers, businesses, and global politics. So stick with us, because what we'll uncover might surprise you. Before we dive in, smash that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos breaking down big stories like this. What are tariffs? Breaking down the basics. Let's start with the basics. What exactly is a tariff? A tariff is basically a tax that a country puts on goods imported from other countries. It's like when you add an extra fee to something coming in from outside. The idea behind tariffs is pretty straightforward: make imported goods more expensive so consumers and businesses will buy products made domestically instead. This strategy is often used to protect local industries from foreign competition and to encourage economic growth within a country. When Donald Trump became president in 2017, he pushed aggressively for tariffs on imports, especially targeting China, with the stated goal of protecting American manufacturing jobs and reducing the huge trade deficits the US was running. The logic was that if foreign goods get pricier, companies would bring manufacturing back to the US and more Americans would get hired. Why tariffs? Trump's trade strategy explained. Trump framed tariffs as a tool to level the playing field. He argued that countries like China engaged in unfair trade practices, stealing intellectual property, subsidizing industries, and flooding US markets with cheap products made by underpaid workers. Tariffs were supposed to pressure these countries into negotiating fairer trade deals and correcting what he saw as long-standing trade imbalances that harmed American businesses. He rolled out tariffs on billions of dollars worth of steel, aluminum, electronics, machinery, and consumer goods. The biggest target was China, where tariffs covered hundreds of billions in imports, aiming to force changes in trade behavior. But tariffs aren't just about economics, they're also political. Trump used tariffs to show strength, rally support among US manufacturers and workers, and push a nationalist, America First, agenda, appealing to voters concerned about job losses and economic decline in key regions. The global ripple effect, trade wars and retaliation. Here's where things get complicated. Tariffs aren't one-sided. When the US slapped tariffs on imports, other countries responded by hitting American products with tariffs of their own. China, the European Union, Canada, Mexico, and others retaliated, sparking what's been called a trade war. This escalating conflict created tension between longtime trade partners and strained diplomatic relations. This back and forth pushed global trade into turmoil. Supply chains got tangled as companies faced unpredictable tariffs and delays. Industries relying on global parts, like auto manufacturing or electronics, faced rising costs, forcing some to rethink their sourcing strategies. Markets became volatile, and companies hesitated to invest amid uncertainty, slowing down expansion plans and innovation. The trade war also slowed down global economic growth. The World Trade Organization and International Monetary Fund warned that escalating tariffs could weaken the global economy, raising prices and reducing demand everywhere, affecting both developed and developing nations in profound ways. The impact on American businesses, winners and losers. At home, the impact of tariffs on American businesses was mixed. Some steel and aluminum producers saw gains as cheaper foreign competition was pushed out. But many manufacturers relying on imported raw materials or components faced rising costs. These costs often got passed down the supply chain, squeezing profit margins and forcing companies to make tough decisions. Small businesses especially struggled. Many rely on global supply chains and don't have the resources to absorb extra costs or negotiate new supplier contracts. Some were forced to raise prices, which drove away customers, or even shut down operations entirely. Even large companies like Apple warned that tariffs could mean higher prices for their products, which worried consumers and investors alike. Car manufacturers, electronics companies, and retailers felt the pinch, and many had to adjust strategies, cut costs, or slow hiring, affecting overall economic growth and job creation in multiple sectors. What about consumers? The price we pay. Who really pays the cost of tariffs? Usually, it's the consumers. When businesses pay more for materials or products, they tend to pass those costs on through higher prices. This means everyday items, from furniture to clothing to electronics, started getting more expensive, sometimes noticeably so. For many families, especially those living paycheck to paycheck, these increases hit hard. This rise in prices directly affects American families. For many, higher costs mean cutting back on spending or choosing cheaper, lower quality alternatives, which can affect quality of life and satisfaction. Inflation, already a challenge, got an extra push from tariffs, adding pressure on household budgets and forcing tough decisions about what to prioritize. These economic pressures ripple through communities, impacting everything from grocery bills to gas prices. The employment question: did tariffs save American jobs? One of the biggest promises of tariffs was saving and creating American manufacturing jobs. The hope was that by making foreign goods more expensive, factories would reopen or expand, hiring more workers. But the reality was far more complicated. Some industries did see job growth, steel workers, for example, but the gains were often offset by losses elsewhere. Industries hit by higher input costs sometimes had to cut jobs or reduce hours, especially in sectors reliant on global supply chains. Moreover, many manufacturing jobs are highly automated now, meaning fewer workers are needed even when factories expand. Economists also pointed out that tariffs don't address broader issues like skills gaps or technological change, which play a huge role in job availability and quality. Additionally, the uncertainty created by trade tensions made some companies hesitant to invest in new hiring or training programs. The agricultural blow: farmers caught in the crossfire. Among the hardest hit were American farmers. China, a key buyer of U.S. soybeans, corn, and other crops, retaliated with tariffs that effectively cut off these exports. This sudden loss of a massive market left many farmers with large surpluses and plunging prices, forcing some to store unsold grain in silos for months or even years. Without buyers abroad, farmers struggled to make ends meet, and many had to take on additional debt just to keep their operations running. Rural economies dependent on agriculture felt the effects deeply, with local businesses also suffering from reduced farm spending. The government stepped in with aid packages to help farmers through the crisis, but many farmers said it was not enough to fully make up for lost trade, long-term market access, and the relationships they had built over decades with international buyers. Inflation and economic uncertainty: the bigger picture. Tariffs played a significant role in the inflation picture in the U.S. By increasing costs on imported goods and parts, tariffs contributed to higher prices on many everyday products, from household appliances to groceries. This inflation, combined with other factors, like supply chain disruptions due to the pandemic and rising fuel costs, created real challenges for the economy. Higher prices reduce consumer spending power and can slow economic growth, as families cut back on non-essential purchases. The uncertainty around trade policies also made businesses cautious about investing or hiring, adding another drag on the economy. Some companies delayed expansion plans, while others shifted operations to countries unaffected by tariffs, which further complicated U.S. job growth and manufacturing stability. Looking ahead, what's next for U.S. trade policy? With a new administration, some tariffs have been eased or reviewed. But many remain in place, and trade relations continue to be tense with countries like China. The big lesson: trade policy is complex and often has unintended consequences. Tariffs might help certain industries but can hurt others and the overall economy. Moving forward, experts argue that the U.S. will need a more balanced, strategic approach to trade, one that considers global supply chains, technology, and the needs of American workers and consumers alike. So, what's the takeaway? Trump's tariffs were intended to protect American jobs and industries, but the global and local impacts were mixed and sometimes painful. They disrupted global trade, raised costs for businesses and consumers, hurt farmers, and created economic uncertainty. Economic policies aren't just abstract numbers, they affect real people's lives, families, and communities. Thanks so much for watching. If you learned something new, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the big economic stories shaping our world. Drop a comment below: what do you think about tariffs? Did they help or hurt the economy in your opinion? I'd love to hear from you.